Lots of filmmakers struggle with what festivals to submit their films to, how many festivals, how much to pay for the submissions, the order that they should submit. The festival submission process can be very confusing, and if you get it wrong, you can mess things up for your film. So it's good to speak to an expert who kind of knows their way around festival submissions and how and which festivals to basically submit to and why. So today we're very happy to have Jon Fitzgerald join the show because he is an expert in this area and we're going to learn a lot. If you want to be a successful indie filmmaker, you need to know a lot about not just the production of movies, but the business. We are going to tell you the truth and reality of what really happens in the indie film business. Hi everybody, welcome back to Indie Filmmaking Truth and Reality. I'm your host Jeff Everett, and today we have a special guest with us, Jon Fitzgerald, who is the president of Cause Media, and he is an expert in film festival, what I'm going to call navigation, submission, understanding how to navigate the film festival circuit. I myself have struggled with this for years. I'm always confused as to which festivals I should submit to, what order, what's important, what isn't important. So, Jon, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. And I've got so many questions for you, but let's start with just, can you introduce yourself and tell us kind of who you are and how you bill yourself?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Jeff. It was nice meeting you last year at the conference downtown, so it's cool to come full circle here. So the short version of this story is myself and two other filmmakers in 1994 submit to Sundance and didn't get in. So we started the Slamdance Film Festival. So kind of by accident, I became a festival director. I ended up taking over the event in 96 and 7 as executive director, and from there went on to the AFI and became their festival director. I've run a number of festivals since then. And after, I'm going to say Santa Barbara, I realized that there were just too many film festivals. And we'll get into that in a minute about just how many more there are now. But at the time when we started Slamdance, there were less than 500. And by the time we got to 2003, there were over 2,500. And I was constantly talking to filmmakers and helping them map out their strategy. So I realized, you know what, there's a business here. So I started a business and basically consulting to filmmakers and helping them map out the right strategy, which festivals to submit to and why. And I also helped a lot of film festivals because I'd obviously learned how to do that from scratch. So I had a business. I helped Gasparilla, the Bahamas, Naples, Abu Dhabi. I helped a bunch of festivals in their early years to kind of establish themselves. So I kind of became the festival guy kind of by accident. And then I eventually wanted to make films again. And so I gravitated more towards what I would call social impact films and wrote a book called Filmmaking for Change, did a half a dozen documentaries. Some of them, by Magnolia and Gravitas, they've all seen festivals, obviously, and been distributed. And then I eventually kind of moved into more kind of entrepreneurial spaces. I'm a co-founder of a few different ventures, and just like to have as much support as I can in different categories for filmmakers. So I do panels quite a bit. I just got back from London doing a panel there on distribution. And working with a company called Hike that we'll talk about later that's going to take on Film Freeway. So that's kind of exciting.
Oh, that's interesting.
And a couple of other really exciting startups. And I do a blog that you probably know about called On the Fest Circuit that goes out to, 70,000 plus people. So that's the short version of what I'm up to.
All right. Thank you for that. You just mentioned Film Freeway. I'm going to assume that most filmmakers have heard of Film Freeway, but I'll explain it, then you can go into details. So if you're wanting to submit to festivals, Film Freeway is basically a website app that you can use to register your film and basically submit it to thousands of festivals. Now, I have recently submitted, John, I made 2 films last year. I submitted them both to festivals. When I first, without filtering, because you'll explain filtering and all this kind of stuff, without filtering, I think there was 14,350 festivals or something like that. Some live, some online. I mean, over 14,000 festivals. You just gave the numbers. When you started, it was 500. I mean, how do you figure this out? How do you navigate it? What do you do?
I'll just say you're right. It's a really big number now. But one of the reasons why this new company is so exciting is that I think the truth is there are probably closer to 7,000 film festivals, but Film Freeway isn't really good at policing them. And there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of festivals. I was hired to start a festival in the Queen Mary of all places a few years ago. We shut it down because the company ran out of money. They still send me emails saying, "Are you ready for your new call for entries?" So they just don't police it very well. They've been bought and sold 3 times in the last 5 years. It's a mess. And even though it functions, it's not very clean. And they do screenplay competitions now too, which is also, I think, part of that number. What I tell filmmakers is I do this course called Film Festival Mastery with my partner, Justin. And basically we do this webinar where we break down what we call the 3 keys. The first key is understanding your goals. The second key is getting on the radar. And the third is really how to participate, how to make the most of that opportunity when you show up at a festival. So to start back from scratch is to build a custom strategy for your film. You have to know what your goals are. As you know, Jeff, a lot of filmmakers are making shorts as a calling card. Sometimes they're making even an independent feature as a calling card. They don't care how much money they make. I was at this festival, Rain Dance in London. A guy made a film for $3,000. He's like, "I'm just going to make this on the cheap, and hopefully I'll get to make the next one with more money." But the point is, you can scrape together funds to get a movie made now. But what are you trying to accomplish with your festival circuit? Are you trying to sell it? Are you trying to just get laurels for your poster? Are you trying to meet other filmmakers you can network with? Once you know what your goals are, then you do the research and you think through, okay, so I want to play industry festivals because I'm looking to sell my film, or I'm trying to play to packed houses because I want feedback. I want to qualify for Oscars. Sometimes short filmmakers are looking for that. Once you know what the different festivals are, right? There's industry festivals, community festivals, destination festivals. You can map out your strategy. Now you can kind of look into the articles that are on IndieWire and Movie Maker, and you can use that kind of as a place to start. I think it's always helpful if the festival's been around a while. Most credible festivals that mean something, if you put those laurels on your poster, have been around for 15, 20, even 30 years. The regional festivals, in my opinion, is really where it's at, because these guys have been around long enough. They know what their communities want to see. They know how to take care of filmmakers, because they've been around a while. And most of them have hotel partners, right? So they can put you up. Because that's another thing when you're researching festivals, you want to go, if networking is part of your goal strategy, then you want to go to festivals that can actually invite you out, right? And put you up. That's where you meet people. You can meet potential investors. You can meet panelists. I did a panel in the Bahamas. They had 2 senior executives, one from Netflix and one from Amazon on the same panel. So it's like you can meet people. You can network with other filmmakers, but you have to know, you can look at the website, what kind of films they're showing, how long they've been around. So it kind of starts with that in terms of goals, categories. Do your research, I think, is critical.
Okay, let me interrupt you for a second. So maybe I'm uber focused on sort of distribution and commercial viability of filmmaking. So what I'm about to say is maybe a little bit convenient for my personal agenda, but I got to assume that most filmmakers have 2 goals in mind. One is they want accolades. They want their film being celebrated. They want people to recognize it. Like, this is what I call artistic success, is basically somebody saying, "Wow, that's a great film, and congratulations, you did a good job as an artist." That would be one goal. And then the second goal is ultimately a financial goal. How do I get it in front of distributors, in front of streamers? Like, ultimately, I think a lot of filmmakers that I speak to want to go to a festival with the hope that their film will get screened and discovered, so it'll get distributed, so it'll eventually be in front of a lot of audiences and make money. To me, those would be the 2 goals. One, artistic, being everybody celebrating your film, and two, making money with it?
Well, let me tell you two things that may or may not be obvious to people. There was a time, right, after sexualizing videotape, and then we had another wave with the streamers and Amazon and Netflix descending on Park City, throwing down big minimum guarantees, buying a ton of movies out of the festival. Last year, I think there were less than a handful of sales out of Sundance. So there's this giant misconception that you have to play an industry festival, of which you can count on two hands, to sell your movie. I mean, we could have a whole separate podcast where I could go down a list of movies that have been acquired on the festival circuit, and not one of them that I would talk about was acquired at one of those industry festivals. It's about establishing credibility. You play Newport, Mill Valley, Cleveland, Chicago. There's a ton of great regional festivals that have been around a long time that have strong programmers, right? So industry professionals can say, look, it's got laurels from Newport, must be a decent film. So it really matters which festivals you play. You talk about the idea of awards. Yes, that's true. I can't tell you how many filmmakers reach out to me after they've gotten invited, even won some awards at festivals I've never even heard of.
Right.
First, second, third year events. Those awards mean zero.
They make the filmmaker feel good, you know.
It does, yeah. but most of these filmmakers are trying to make a movie and advance their career.
Right.
Whether they're going to sell it to A24 or use an aggregator to get it on iTunes, whatever the case may be, they want to move their career forward. You send a press kit with a bunch of laurels on it from festivals that are meaningless, these distributors laugh at you.
So it's almost a negative, would you say?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because not only that, you're using up those cards. There's like 25 festivals in LA now. 20 of them are an absolute waste of time. So if you're looking for credibility, if you just want to tell mom and dad you got this cool prize,
right,
that's great. But if you're trying to advance your career, then you want to win something at a festival that means something.
So credibility, meaning that if you are at a legitimate, credible festival and you are recognized, or even just
just being there,
even you're accepted to the festival, then a distributor or an agent will recognize that and say this film is at a certain caliber because it got into this festival. Is that the credibility we're talking?
Yeah, and let's say, for example, that you played some strong regional festivals. I'll give you an example. A film called Breaking Bread didn't get into Sundance, didn't get into Toronto, didn't get into South by Southwest, but it played Napa, won an award, played Santa Barbara, played a bunch of respectable events, and eventually the Cohen Media Group bought the film. Didn't buy it out of an industry festival. It tracked the progress. It was interested in the film. The filmmaker reached out to them. They had a press kit with laurels on it that means something. They took a look at the film and they made him an offer. They had a bunch of offers, but that was the company that made the most sense. But the point is, it didn't necessarily have an acquisition at an industry festival. It was generating momentum, positive reviews, laurels from credible events, and then you use that in your materials. And that's how you generate interest and awareness in selling your film. And by the way, even if you don't sell the film to them, you now have the momentum. This is a whole other podcast, right? It's like, okay, I just played festivals. What's next? So even if you don't get acquired, you may have some ammunition now, right? Mm-hmm. And some momentum. So now you can go out to these companies with some credible laurels on your press kit and say, look, this is where I played. These credible programmers wanted my movie. So they'll take a look at it. And if it's not for them, maybe it's the next project.
You keep saying industry festivals or something. What's the term you're using? Industry events? Yeah. So what's the difference between, say, an industry event and a non-industry one, like a consumer one?
Well, when I say industry, I mean the festivals where there are predominantly industry professionals flocking to look for discovery and content, whether they're buying a film or they're signing a new actor or director. So you've got Sundance, Toronto, Telluride, Cannes, Berlin. Again, you can count these on two hands, but these are the festivals that have more industry than anything else. I mean, I guess you could argue Toronto has a very strong community as well, right? They're really good at separating the two. There's industry screenings where you use your industry badge, and then there's screenings for the general public, which is, they do it better there than anywhere else. But for the most part, if you go up and down the sidewalks of Telluride, you're going to see more industry professionals than you are consumers.
Okay, that's okay. Now, realistically, before we move on to the next thing, how realistic is it for an indie film, no recognizable talent, sort of low budget, but good film, legitimately entertaining film, to get accepted into one of those festivals? The acceptance rates that I've been reading about are
less than 1%.
I thought it was less than 0.1%. I mean,
it's less than 0.5% to get into Sundance or Slamdance. I can't give you the numbers for Telluride, but it's pretty low.
It's low. So
it's low. It's less than 5%.
Filmmakers should not kind of, like a lot of filmmakers say to me, here's my plan. I make a good film, it gets into Sundance, it gets recognized by an industry professional, it gets distributed. I mean, come on, seriously? That's
not
like
the
saying,
right plan.
Yeah, that's like saying my plan is to win the lottery.
Yeah, don't plan for those festivals. You plan around those festivals. And frankly, this is a big consideration. When I talk to clients, I have a service. I do a film festival consulting package, right? I charge a fee. They send me their film. We set up a call. We talk about their goals. Based on their goals and their timing, then I put together a custom spreadsheet that has the dates, the deadlines, everything. And then I work with them on the materials. And then once they submit to certain festivals, I reach out to the festivals and make sure they get seen. Because the second big key, which we haven't talked about yet, is getting on the radar, right? A lot of films aren't even getting seen anymore, which is a whole other problem. But the point is once you submit to these festivals, you have to accept the fact that for example, the fall season is the biggest season, the most festivals, and frankly, the biggest concentration of strong festivals. Let's say you're submitting to Sundance, but they're not notifying you until late fall. But you get invited to a Newport or a Mill Valley or an Austin or one of these other really strong festivals. Are you really going to pass up those opportunities because you're hoping for Sundance? So I tell clients, absolutely not. You take those invitations, but you'd be surprised. A lot of these filmmakers just hold out for Sundance. They skip all those opportunities. Then they don't get into Sundance, and then they got to start over.
Yeah, just
right?
By the way, some filmmakers are listening and they're saying, well, why can't they do both? And the answer is that Sundance, you have to be a world premiere. If you accept any other invitation that goes before Sundance, you disqualify yourself from Sundance, correct?
Correct for Sundance for sure. They need a premiere. There are other festivals that just need a U.S. premiere or a regional premiere. But, the other thing that a lot of filmmakers make mistakes in is they play a smaller festival that invites them in a certain region, and then it takes them out of the running. Like they'll play a smaller festival in L.A. because they're so excited, and now they've missed an opportunity for Dances with Films or AFI or one of the bigger ones. And the same for, New York or Texas, right? These cities, there are certain cities that have tons of festivals. You got to be careful because if a festival plays it in that region, none of the other festivals in that region are going to play it.
Right. So there is this exclusivity thing that goes on. Some of it's published, some of it's probably unspoken, or just you have to understand it.
Yeah.
Okay, so John, just before you go on, so now you take a client on, they have a film, let's say it's me. And the first thing I would say to you is, which festivals should we even submit to? Like, obviously, which one. So let's take out all the non-credible ones, or the ones that don't even exist. I mean, like you just said, of the 14,000 I identified, maybe only 7,000 are even real. Half of them aren't even real. So how do you know?
Well, I've got a list of roughly 500 festivals, and I really focus on usually 200 of them. And depending on the goals, depending on the filmmaker, how many film festivals they want to submit to, some will submit to over 100 festivals. Some people don't have a budget for that. Mm-hmm. It's a short and they really want to qualify for Oscar consideration. Then you bundle a combination of some of the top Oscar qualifying festivals with some other festivals that I would say are more of a tier 3 festival that are easier to get into, but are equally, well, maybe not quite equally, but almost equally credible, right? Where it's worth your time. You don't want to go to a festival because you were able to get in and then you show up and there's 5 people in the theater.
That recently happened to me.
That happens. There you go.
Oh yeah, I was at a festival recently. I won't even say because I don't want to taint anything, but there were lots and lots of people at the festival, but nobody was going to the screenings. the screenings were empty. And I'm talking, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. All the screenings there were 5 to 10 people in every screening, and some of the films were good. And it was kind of demoralizing.
With a lot of these, the other thing that there's an issue for these kind of what I'll call fourth and fifth tier festivals, and sometimes even tier 3 does this, is the festival has to know what the capacity is for their audiences. And that has to help dictate how many screens you have going at the same time. And this may not make a lot of sense to some of your listeners right off the top, but if you think about it, if you're going into a multiplex where there are 5 screenings going on at the same time, but you're a fairly new festival that doesn't have 10 or 20,000 attendees yet, you're going to have a situation, right, where 1 or 2 of those films is probably going to get the lion's share of audience,
right.
The one that sounds the most interesting, the one that had the most press, the one that, was hustling with their postcards or what have you. And some of those other films are going to struggle. And so it's this weird balance, right? As a festival director, how many screens can I have going at one time so that I can give my filmmakers a chance to actually have an audience? And it's hard sometimes if you're only playing on a 3 or 4 day stretch, right? Thursday night, opening night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's kind of the average thing these days. Well, if I only have 2 screens, I've only got, 10 slots a day times 3. You know what I mean? It's not a lot of movies. So they add another screen so they can have more movies, but it's counterproductive if nobody comes.
Which is demoralizing for the filmmaker. Very.
Yeah.
Okay, so we started with the goals. You assess the goals, then you're going to choose sort of which festivals you want to submit to. But obviously, the good ones. And on average, say somebody has a budget for festivals, what would be kind of an average type of submission? 20?
I think it's on average like 30 to 40 festivals.
Okay.
Is probably the sweet spot, because again, you want to have a creative combination of some of the top line festivals. Maybe it's not Sundance or Telluride, but other festivals that show a lot of movies. Hot Docs has a ton of documentaries. Toronto has a ton of films. Seattle has a lot of movies. South by Southwest. These aren't easy festivals to get into, but the odds are better than 5%, or 1%. So sometimes you put some of those on your list and hope for the best. And then you put in some second tier festivals, and then you put some third tier festivals, as long as they're credible. And you try and do it in waves. So you do, call it half a dozen, and you tick a few of those categories off, and then you see how you do. If you get shut out, then maybe your next wave is just tier 3 and tier 4. Sometimes I talk to a client who says, look, I only want to play 10 to 15 festivals, and they have to be first tier or second tier. I've done this before. I don't want to waste time with these third tier festivals. I got a family. I'm not traveling all over the world to network. I just want to get some credible laurels on my poster to try and sell my movie. So I would structure their list accordingly. But some filmmakers are like, look, I just got out of film school. I want to travel as much as I can. I don't have a family yet. And if they'll stick me in a hotel room, I'll get there. And they want to network and they want to meet as many. So they might submit to 50, 75 festivals. So it really kind of depends, again, back to the goals and what you're trying to get out of that festival run.
Realistically, are festivals paying for filmmakers to attend? I mean, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Most of them aren't paying everything. Most credible festivals have hotel deals. So whether they're putting the filmmaker up for 3 nights or they're getting a strong discount for the filmmaker for 3 nights, most festivals don't have airline deals now. I mean, if you're a top tier festival, you've got a budget to fly people out and put them up. But that's important too. One of the things that I always ask filmmakers when we're talking about the goals is, how many festivals do you want to attend? If hospitality is important to you, then you want to go to a festival that has a strong hospitality program, right? That has some hotel deals or comp hotel rooms, that has happy hours and brunches and receptions. You need to go to the ones that actually have a reputation for that. I have this thing on the circuit. I count down like the top 10 hospitality festivals, festivals that are known for taking care of filmmakers, where filmmakers have a good time.
Mm-hmm. And paying though, like Well, maybe not the whole ticket,
Yeah,
but
most of them will cover your hotel for a few nights, and at the very least, they'll give you some discounted rates at those hotels.
right. So I find that all of them have a big award ceremony at the end of the festival, which is the big hoopla, but you have to pay for that. Oh, mind you, I guess if you're a nominee, you don't have to pay for it.
It depends on the festival. I won't name names either, but I know there are a few festivals that actually charge for that. I've never done that. I think it's insulting. You have to be able to invite your filmmakers to come to the award ceremony. Any festival that's charging for that, I frown on that heavily. And there's some that take it to an extreme where they literally say, you're required to come to the award ceremony and you got to pay this. And yeah, that's where you kind of start thinking, is this festival really worth my time?
Okay, in terms of strategy, so there is a strategy, obviously, you're talking about which ones to submit to. Now, is there a strategy in your submission on how to submit to get to the top of the pile? Do people like you who have all this kind of insider knowledge, and maybe you can't even talk about this, are you able to make a call, get one film higher in the, like I call it, the pile, in terms of being recognized, not necessarily chosen, but at least screened or whatever in front of something else? Is there something?
Yeah, what I do, because I've been around long enough, I know a lot of festival directors and a lot of programmers. So what I tell my clients is, if the film is decent, right? I don't do it if it's a film that I don't think has a prayer of getting in, because it's my reputation on the line too at that point. But I do, for the most part, agree to reach out to film festivals that I know and say, look, here's, film X, and I know it was submitted and it's worth a look. And I'll be honest, sometimes I push a little bit harder. Sometimes I'll say, this is a terrific film. You'd be lucky to have it, kind of thing. And they're looking for their world premiere still. So sometimes I push it a little harder than others, but I still feel, wearing my festival director hat, I still feel like it's my job. Somebody paid us money to submit their film. We owe it to them to watch their movie. Most often, if I have a relationship with a festival that's on a list that I've sent to a client, I'll reach out to that film festival and at least make sure that I've done what I could to at least get it on their radar. And sometimes it's as easy as, here's a trailer. That's something I tell people has become more and more important. A lot of times these film festivals have like seniors that are film fans or film students. And some of these folks, unfortunately, if they're not into it right away, you can track Vimeo stats these days, right? And a lot of times it's a little questionable, but a lot of times it's true. And you could see that this person only watched 3 minutes of it.
Right.
So I feel like if you lean into the trailer idea and your materials and send out a notice 8-10 weeks from the notification date saying, whatever your excuse might be, I have this whole thing on the radar. There's a whole module in our course about getting on the radar. What's the angle? What's the approach? Did you shoot the film there? Are you from there? Is one of your actors from there? What's the approach? What's the angle? Did a film that come out of there did really well, kind of fit in the same style or genre as your film? Like, what is the approach? You don't want to just send a form letter saying, I've heard great things about your festival. Hope I can play there. What is the approach? And then send a link to the trailer. And if you have a trailer that's compelling, that might help improve your chances of getting seen. Whether I make a call or another consultant makes a call for you, you can be your own best publicist to just reach out with something to get them excited about it.
Mm-hmm. That stat you just said, the Vimeo 3-minute watch. So I'm convinced, and here I'll tell you why in a second, that most films actually don't get watched. When they get submitted, they actually don't get watched, or they get watched for a minute or 2 or 3 minutes at the most. And that's just because it's numbers. I mean, think of a festival that gets, say, even 5,000 submissions. Sundance gets 10, 15,000, whatever, but 5,000 submissions, which is not crazy. It's a lot.
No.
Okay.
It's a lot. And I think most first or second tier festivals are getting at least 5,000.
Okay. So, and let's say on average a film is, let's just, to make the math easy, an hour and a half. All right. So you're getting, 30, so 5,000, it's like 7,500 hours of viewing. Now, how much can somebody actually watch? How many people do you need to watch 7,500 hours over what period of time? That's a lot of people, a lot of time, who go boggly-eyed after they watch too many films. So it feels to me like it's almost too overwhelming to actually watch all the movies, and I'm kind of convinced that they don't. Am I being too skeptical?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I wouldn't say that most films aren't getting watched, but I would say that it's become a problem to the point where there needs to be more policing. There needs to be more follow through on the part of the filmmaker, unfortunately, and there needs to be more accountability from the film festivals. And Hike is working on some of those tools. It's HIIKE, by the way, .com. They're going to have some more advanced search tools on the filmmaker side and help filmmakers find the right fit. They're also going to have more policing tools and support festivals who are leaning into that. Because some festivals that we talk to are really trying to be accountable, right? But I think, again, it's true that some of these films aren't getting watched all the way through, but if you can find an excuse, you can find an angle and send something to these programmers. Now, look, there are programmers out there that are, if they're listening, would say, John, I wish you didn't say that. I don't want to end up with 200 emails. But the truth is, most festival programmers worth their salt. That's part of the job.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, you're paying your submission fee and you're hoping that they're being credible to actually give you a chance. But okay, you've mentioned Hike a few times. So Film Freeway seems to be almost in some ways a monopoly in terms of the submission process. Before them was Without a Box from Amazon, and then so what's Hike? Can you tell us what it's all about?
Well, it's the truth is it's very similar to Film Freeway. There's a whole filmmaker submission side, and there's a whole film festival tool base, right? Where they're tracking the submissions and creating the tool set for the programmers to be watching and tracking and communicating with the filmmakers. So it's very similar in concept, but there's two big differences. The first is there's a lot more personalization and personal time and attention that Hike is going to give to filmmakers. So in other words, they're going to create webinars and podcasts and chats, and there's going to be this whole hub that I'm going to support. Actually, I'm a co-founder. We're going to really support personal connections with these filmmakers and help them. Now, certain pieces of that will be an upgrade, right? If I'm watching the film and creating a custom spreadsheet, that's not coming for free. But there is a lot of community-based services and support that Ike is going to offer filmmakers that Film Freeway does not. In addition to a lot more comprehensive advanced search tools. One of the biggest problems with Film Freeway is they don't have enough advanced search tools, and another is their customer service. Both those things are failing miserably. The other thing is we're going to have accelerator programs where we're helping film festivals. First, second, third year, sometimes it's a 10th year and they just need a refresh. So we're going to have a lot of community speaking, webinars. We're going to do an accelerator program with a lab where we're doing a 10-week program to help festivals. So it's going to be pretty comprehensive. And to be honest, as you said, Film Freeway has had a monopoly for quite some time. It's about time somebody takes them on. And these two gals that are running the show, Bryn and Tyler, are really sharp. They're a great combination of skill sets. And I'm kind of coming in with the years of experience. Right. But
is it an American platform? Like, is it?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah. Just launched. It's just launching like literally a few days ago.
So you said HIIKE?
HIIKE.
And is it an acronym for something? Does it stand for something?
Yeah, there's a story, and I think I'll let people discover the story when they visit the site and hear it when Bryn puts it up. But she used to be a skier, so there's a whole symbolic thing around the hike, and
right.
Regardless of what happens, you got to just pick yourself up and do what it takes to get to the top, kind of thing. But it's a strong platform with more vision, quite honestly. And Film Freeway, I don't know if you knew this, but they've literally sold to a couple of different companies, and they're just not paying any attention to it. The founders aren't even there anymore.
Oh, really?
They're not filmmakers, not film people. So they got lucky. They provided a good service coming in on the heels of Without a Box, and that was great. It was great. I remember David Strauss. I mean, I was close with those guys and Film Finders, and they provided a great service. Fill out one application,
Yeah, it was
check a bunch of boxes,
very
and
easy.
submit. I
Yep.
mean, it was brilliant.
Yep.
The problem is, it's like there's so many now that you can't just have a tech-based tool provide the support. There has to be some customization and some personalization.
Okay. Now you said there at the beginning there were three things. There's the goals. There's the kind of understanding who to submit to. What was the third thing again?
The third thing is maximizing your participation, because unfortunately, a lot of filmmakers will show up to a festival and first of all, they're not prepared. They haven't thought through what they need to do, what they need to bring. They don't have postcards. They don't have press kits because it's their first rodeo and they don't necessarily know. And then they get their goodie bag and they go in the hotel room and they pour themselves a glass of wine and they kind of look through the catalog and the program. And maybe they show up for a happy hour. Maybe they go to a coffee. I just have seen it happen a lot where filmmakers aren't really capitalizing on that opportunity. I feel like I do a whole acrostic where I have like each letter for participate stands for something. But the bottom line is, I don't want to go through the whole thing with you today because I don't want to take up all that time. But the bottom line is you need to prepare. Think about the audiences there. If it's a yoga film, reach out to the yoga studios. You can't assume that the festival is going to fill the theater for you. What can you do to help be your best publicist? Reach out to the local papers, the local radio. Make sure that you're showing up at all the happy hours and the receptions. Make sure you're connecting to all the filmmakers that are there. You invite them to your screening. You go to their screening. There's a whole camaraderie thing. Be connecting with the team members. As you know, Jeff, huge alumni thing going on with festivals. They're always inviting filmmakers that played there before. So connect and meet with those filmmakers and just see it as an experience and show up ready to talk about your film. Right? You show up at some filmmakers get up for the Q&A and they're like deer in headlights,
Last thing, do you think there's publicists who offer services, sometimes quite expensive. Like I've seen $5,000 packages where they say they're going to promote you and do what you just said. Is that something a filmmaker should consider, or is it?
It's a very good question and I get it a lot. In my stance is if you are playing a top tier festival or a really crowded market, like, one of the top 10 markets in the country where there's a lot of people, it can help to have a publicist. I don't think that as a short filmmaker, it's money well spent. I think that you can probably find a way to band together with the other filmmakers and get enough people to show up at the screening. If it's an industry festival, then maybe, because you want industry to show up and discover you, so to speak. But if it's a community festival and a short film, I think that's money down the drain. I do think that if you're a feature and you're planning on some type of release, whether you're going to streaming platforms or you're doing an event release or a non-theatrical virtual event, whatever it is, you might need some publicity when you release the film, when people can come and buy a ticket or buy to download it. Like that's the time to think about a publicist, not
Right.
for a film festival.
Right. All right. This has been incredibly insightful, interesting. Like you say, you've said it 3 or 4 times, and I 100% agree with you. We could do separate maybe not just single episode podcasts, but multiple podcasts. You teach courses on all this stuff. There's just so much content to kind of delve into if we wanted to, but I think we've kind of scratched the surface enough to kind of really understand. Is there anything else that filmmakers should be cognizant of in terms of the festival submission and navigation process? I always tell them, don't get your hopes up too high, especially with the big festivals. And if you get lucky, great. And if not, like go down the middle road as you were talking about.
Well, yeah, I think we covered most of it on the film festival front. The only other thing I'll add is, and again, you're right, it's another panel or another podcast, but the idea that even though people are talking about how Hollywood is broken and how it's a real slog and how, there's less productions, there's less movies in theaters. Theaters are going dark. It's everything's bleak. And what I'd like to say is that the truth is there's probably never been more opportunity for independent filmmakers. You just have to be more of an entrepreneur now than you did 20 years ago. You have to wear multiple hats, and you have to think, theaters now will talk to independent filmmakers. That wasn't happening 10 years ago. AMC and Regal and all these theaters, they're this film with Peter Higuchi, The Occult, it's a road show playing across the country. He's showing up. He's got an AMC theater on a Wednesday night, and he's doing a Q&A, and he's selling out. And Hundreds of Beavers made over $1 million going to art house theaters and showing up and doing Q&As and bringing merch and costumes. So there's a lot of opportunities for filmmakers after their festival run to go out there and get an audience. You just have to be more creative. So I get frustrated sometimes when I hear filmmakers kind of bitching and moaning about how hard it is. Yeah, it's not easy, but there's a lot of opportunities out there now. You can promote on social media and make some posters and go into any city and get people to come to your movie if it's a good movie, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. I'm very opportunistic and optimistic about how to make the most.
This is what we would call, or what you call, alternative distribution. So, I mean, if you have a few more minutes, I would love to talk. This is my sweet spot. This whole, I call it self-distribution, but it's definitely alternative.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah, I'm good for another 10. I think the important thing is that, to your point, whether it's self-distribution or alternative distribution, again, back to the goals. What are you trying to do? Like, Higuchi wants to take this movie on a roadshow and convince theaters that there's an opportunity to play these kinds of films without a distributor mucking it all up, right? He's talking to theater managers.
The ultimate goal for somebody like that, because I have clients also who do this, who have done their own road shows, paid four-walled the theaters, done that kind of stuff, advertising, so that they can create their own audience awareness and ultimately, hopefully, grow the audience by word of mouth, and
create a fan base for themselves.
Correct. But with the ultimate goal of making money, that's their goal. They don't want to be like, they're not renting the theaters out and opening it up for free. They are selling the tickets. So they do want people to come and do paid admission, and hopefully lots more people will do it the way they do it for the big movies. Just, the big movies they can't get the attention of the big studios, obviously. So they have to do it, go it alone. That's why I call it self-distribution. And, somebody who believes in their movie a lot wants to take a shot with it. But it's not easy, obviously. It's very expensive to get the theaters, expensive to do the advertising.
But
and the
you
publicity.
can do revenue shares. That's the thing. And I think if you can, yes, the four-wall thing was a thing, but the truth is a lot of these folks now, Peter included, you don't have to four-wall the theater. You just have to convince the theater manager or the booker that you'll put cheeks in the seats. And I got to tell you, on a Wednesday night in a 10-screen AMC theater, you've got a filmmaker saying, look, I'll put 300 people in your theater. Those are people that are buying popcorn. He's making more money with Peter than he is without him. So it's not a four-wall thing all the time anymore. It's now like a revenue share.
I agree, but how do you guarantee you're going to get 300 people in those seats?
You can't guarantee, but the point is that a lot of these theaters are almost empty. And what Peter's doing is he's saying, look, I'll spend the money on buying the postcards. I'll do some Facebook ads and some Instagram ads. He's spending $300 to $500 on a city, if you will. That's nothing. It used to be $10,000 to open a picture, right? So he's spending very little money, and he's filling a lot of these theaters. And what he's hoping is that some of these theaters will say, wow, these people loved your movie. He's got all these testimonials. Let's hold it over and see how it does. And in some cases, it's working. And it worked for Hundreds of Beavers. And I think the important thing to get here, I don't know if you get Stephen Follows on Substack, but he just wrote a great piece about it last week. I promoted it on the circuit this week about what audiences are looking for when they come to the movies now. And I think the big missing link here is what these two filmmakers that we're talking about now have done is they've created an experience. They're showing up and they're doing a Q&A. and they're signing books or they're signing posters or they're interacting with the community. And you can't get that watching a movie on your couch and watch a Netflix
it's
show,
like
right?
that's like going to a festival screening. Yeah.
Right. So that's what's getting people to show up. So I think as long as filmmakers are willing to be creative and think about the markets that'll work, like Hundreds of Beavers probably wouldn't work in downtown Palm Springs. Older community, not necessarily the target audience, so you got to know which communities to go into. But I just think that there's tremendous opportunities. And if you have like an educational film or something that appeals to the art house crowd or a culturally relevant community that cares about art and culture, there's films like was it Five Seasons, right? This gentleman that was creating art out of landscapes, and he took his film into museums and art houses and galleries, and he made a ton of money and had people coming out because he reached the right audiences and played in these non-traditional places. So I think depending on the film and depending on your audience, Hundreds of Beavers went to art house theaters, leaned into that community. But Hayaguchi went to AMC because he's like, this is a date night movie.
What if you didn't want to do the theatrical thing because you didn't have the time or the wherewithal or the money or whatever, and could you do it on streaming? Could you go out?
You go to Gather, you go to Kinema. These two leading places. There's a company called Olyn, Olyn. There's another company that I promoted yesterday in my blog called Bingeable, which has a brilliant affiliate model. So all your bands and your actors and your crew members are promoting the film to their groups. Everybody gets an affiliate. You can create your own page, a lot more exciting than a typical streaming platform detail page. There's a few different places to go. I think Gather, Gathr, and Kinema with a K. Those are the two kind of leading virtual experiences. They also do community screenings, but you can set up an account for free. They'll sell tickets for you. I want to say Kinema's even got like a whole streaming library now happening on top of just the events that they're doing for filmmakers.
And are they getting the audience people, or do you also still have to promote it as a combination?
It's a combination. You
Right.
still have to hustle. But we did an event last year, and a nonprofit had chapters all over the country, and they reached out to their chapters and they decided which communities would get people out. So that's another thing, right? Think about partnerships. What are the types of partnerships that could really help you, and have them do the work for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I say this to filmmakers all the time. That's knowing who your audience is, being able to focus on it and getting their attention, creating awareness. And I say that's way more difficult than actually making the movie. Marketing the movie is so difficult.
Marketing's tough. And I think, it's unfortunately one of those things that filmmakers don't always think about before they roll cameras, right? They just think they're going to make a good movie and they're going to promote it and everyone's going to come. But I think it actually helps if you have a niche audience, right? That cares about a certain subject, right? Or that appeals to a certain demographic. Like, the independent filmmakers aren't making 4-quadrant movies, right? It's just not a thing.
Right.
So who is your audience and how can you reach them?
Yeah, no, I think it's so important to focus on that. All right, Jon, this has been super insightful. I really appreciate all your input and your knowledge. I look forward to seeing you at festivals and or conventions. You and I kind of run cross paths here and there, but thanks for coming on, and
of course,
happy 4th of July.
Same to you. And just for your users, I want to just make sure everybody knows how to find me. causepictures.com is the easiest place. CAUSE pictures.com is the best place. And people should check out, any of the filmmakers listening should check out the Substack for On the Fest Circuit, because there's tons of valuable information there.
Okay, so Cause Pictures is if they want to hire you to help them navigate the film festival.
Yeah, or just get some free resources. There's tons of resources there. There's a book on how to play the festival circuit. It's a good place to start.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you, Jon Fitzgerald. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and I will see you out in the industry.
Sounds good, Jeff. You take care. Have a good 4th to you and all of your fans. And yeah, I'm sure I'll see you around.
So that was Jon Fitzgerald. I've known him for many years. He's a good guy. He knows all about the film festival circuit because he came from it. And I still think it's a tricky thing to navigate, but check him out. Check out his materials, and hopefully you'll figure out the right direction to go into, which festivals to submit to, and how to navigate them. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, send me an email at jdeverett@deverettmedia.com. And please subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and I will see you next time.